When a boy needed comfort, she shared jokes, the incredible moment that transformed 1 million lives. Ethan sat on the front porch, his fingers tapping nervously against the weathered wood. Memories of laughter floated away like leaves in the fall, they were now replaced by echoes of grief and silence. His father's absence hung heavy over their small home, while his mother's endless shifts at the hospital consumed every moment of her energy. Alone with his thoughts, Ethan felt as if he was drifting in an endless sea of sorrow, unsure how to find solid ground. The weight of grief wrapped around him like an unwelcome blanket, suffocating and relentless. Just then, Grandma Ruth shuffled out, her frail frame teetering slightly but her spirit bright. "Ethan, my boy. What's brightening your day? The sun, or my brand new joke?" Her mischief-filled eyes glinted, and suddenly, the corners of his mouth turned up, fighting against the storm within. He could barely hear her jokes through the noise of his memories, but he desperately wanted to share the moment. "How does a penguin build its house? Igloos it together." His laughter felt foreign, but it reminded him of happier times. If only they could stay like this, sharing humor, ignoring reality. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each video they crafted, filled with Grandma's quips and heartfelt moments, Ethan started to feel a flicker of hope. It was intoxicating, the thrill of newfound followers surging to thousands. Laughter transformed into a tool he wielded without understanding its weight. But as the numbers climbed, so did his fears. What if the local bully, Tom, revealed his aching past, the grief he buried under layers of humor? The thought churned in his stomach, gnawing at him like a constant reminder that some truths were meant to remain hidden. He wrestled with the idea of continuing this charade for fame's sake. Was he just seeking comfort in the laughter, avoiding the truth of his grief? Each time he crossed the line between vulnerability and performance, his heart lurched, overwhelmed by doubt. What if they saw through him? What if Grandma's humor became a mask for the pain he refused to share? As the thought of the upcoming live stream loomed closer, fear tightened its grip around him. It would be a defining moment, one that could either amplify their bond or shatter him completely. Would revealing his truth set him free, or seal him in a cage of public scrutiny? He stood at the edge of a precipice, heart racing, mind spiraling. Would this moment of connection with Grandma Ruth bring healing or drown him deeper into despair? The tension coiled tightly like a snake ready to strike, and the camera's countdown echoed in his head. With Grandma's encouraging smile contrasting sharply against the looming threat of humiliation, Ethan found himself staring down an uncertain path. The question lingered, dragged out by the weight of expectation: can laughter be a bridge to healing, or would it only mask what needed to be confronted? Ethan's heart raced as the countdown finalized. The camera light turned from red to green, and he felt a cauldron of emotions bubbling within him: anticipation, trepidation, and an unsettling urge to flee. A facade of cheerful confidence washed over him as he waved at the screen, Grandma Ruth beaming beside him. He indicated their theme for the live stream, laughing through grief. His voice carried a tremor, revealing the vulnerability he sought to mask. This time, the laughter felt different, a rawness interspersed with grains of truth. Old wounds pressed against the armor of humor he had constructed, and Ethan realized he had two distinct paths ahead: to remain a performer, crafting jokes to distract, or to open his heart, allowing viewers a glimpse of his pain. The chat buzzed with comments, the audience eager for jokes. He attempted an easy one: why did the chicken cross the road? Because it was the chicken's day off. Laughter erupted in the comments, trimming down the space of his insecurities. Yet even amid the laughter, he sensed a hollowness. The quick-fix humor was a transient salve, insufficient to mask the deep lacerations of loss lurking beneath. He paused, the next joke stuck in his throat. This wasn't just a stream to entertain, it was an opportunity to bridge the chasm between this new world and his reality. He could sense Grandma's reassuring gaze, her belief in him solidified like the trees rooted deep in their yard. I want to share something. Something true. Glancing at the stream's viewers, Ethan felt naked. He opened up about his father, the man who had taught him the gift of laughter and whose absence had rendered those jokes bittersweet. When Dad died, I thought humor would hold me together. I thought laughter would be enough. His voice shook, speeding through the revelation, a torrent of honesty spilling out. Speaking the words ignited a sensation he had buried deeply, the awareness that others shared his grief. The comment bar exploded with empathy and shared experiences. Sorry for your loss, read one. You're not alone, chimed another. Suddenly, clarity washed over him. Humor wasn't just a weapon against sorrow, it was a channel for connection, for shared humanity. Even in suffering. As he continued, he became painfully aware of Tom lurking in the background of his mind, the bully from school who thrived on targeting vulnerabilities. But in that moment, with thousands tuning in and supporting him, Tom's shadow receded. Bad memories transformed, they became less a weight and more a grounding element for Ethan's journey. The stream wrapped up with comments flooding in, praises and encouragement resonating like waves crashing against the shore. Ethan felt a surge of energy, the truth he had shared creating a lifeline back to himself and to others. The fear of exposure slowly morphed into a glow of empowerment. Thank you, Ethan breathed, fighting back tears, for hearing me. But his mind whirled with thoughts of what would follow. Sharing was just the beginning. Could he keep this newfound direction? Allowing himself to be vulnerable felt exhilarating yet frightening. Would the applause translate into strength or merely remind him of the abyss of his loss? His heart raced at the thought of confronting Tom again after this monumental moment. Would his newfound resolve face off against the past? The challenge loomed before him, a defining moment that could either reaffirm his growth or drag him. As they switched off the stream, Ethan found himself staring at the reflection of the camera, clarity emerging amid chaos. The real work was yet to come, and he couldn't ignore the fact that standing strong meant confronting those who wished to see him falter. Tomorrow, he would face Tom. And that very thought sent a shiver down his spine. Would he hold his ground? Ethan awoke the next morning, the weight of the day ahead pressing against him like a tangible force. The sun had risen, flooding his bedroom with warmth, but the anxiety clinging to him felt cold and heavy. Thoughts of the live stream replayed in his mind, flickering images of shared laughter intertwined with his father's memory. He had laid bare his soul and found connection. Would he be able to replicate that feeling outside the safety of the screen? As he dressed, he glanced in the mirror, and the reflection staring back was a mix of uncertainty and resolve. Today is just a conversation, he whispered to himself, trying to infuse confidence into the mirror's image. Yet, the mirror did little to reflect the turmoil brewing inside. He had dismantled the walls protecting his vulnerabilities the night before. Now, he stood naked and exposed before the riotous echoes of his own fear. During breakfast, Grandma Ruth spoke lightly of attending the farmer's market, but Ethan's mind was miles away in the hallways of his high school. The prospect of seeing Tom again, the bully whose taunts had lingered long past their encounters, sent a wave of nausea through him. Ethan? Grandma's voice jolted him back into the present. You okay, sweetheart? You look pale. Yeah, just thinking, he replied, forcing a smile. But inside, gears turned. He needed a plan, specific strategies that would promote resilience in the face of confrontation. His phone buzzed, a reminder of the stream's overwhelming response. He hesitated but opened the app and scrolled through the comments. Many spoke of their own struggles, their own losses, and how his vulnerability inspired them. Ethan felt a swell of pride mixed with guilt. He had made a promise to be true, yet there was still hesitation about facing his personal demons. Would sharing more help him or reveal too much to Tom, who thrived on exploiting weakness? At school, the hallways seemed laden with an air thick with past memories, the echoes of laughter, the shadows of old wounds. Ethan entered the building, focused on not letting his thoughts spiral. He recalled the comments of support, thinking of the strength he drew from that collective empathy. Suddenly, Ethan spotted Tom at his usual spot, surrounded by his friends, laughter spilling out of them like poison. The sight sent a chill down his spine, yet this time, rather than retreat, he felt a flicker of resolve ignite deep within. Maybe he could confront Tom, but he wouldn't do it with anger or fists. As Ethan approached, his heart pounded, but he kept his posture firm and demeanor calm. "Hey, Tom. Got a minute?" A mixture of surprise and sneering arrogance crossed Tom's face. "For what, exactly? Planning to tell another sad story?" Ethan felt the old fear creeping in, but the memory of his words shared last night solidified his conviction. "I'm not here to entertain you. I just wanted to say that it's strange being bullied by someone who thinks they're superior. You may think you're winning, but your cruelty just shows your own insecurities. It stops now." The tension hung heavy, and for a moment, time seemed to halt. Tom's expression shifted from mockery to genuine confusion. It was something Ethan hadn't expected to see. But this wasn't simply about Tom. It was larger, a culmination of every moment when Ethan had felt small and defined by someone else's narrative. He had disrupted the cycle, exposed the realities that had trapped him for too long, and in that singular moment of clarity, the fear fell away. Ethan turned to leave, joy and liberation bubbling within him, but he felt a flicker of doubt. What if confronting Tom hadn't mattered? What if he just woke up another monster? Yet, in his gut, the certainty of empowerment rang true. As he walked away, the crowd murmured, but his heart pulsed with exhilaration. He had taken a stance, and whether it would stick or not was beyond him. It changed something deep inside. Later that evening, he reflected on the experience, reviewing the moment in layers. The fear still lurked in the back of his mind, but he embraced it. What had begun as vulnerability had led to empowerment, which flipped the script of his junior life, but would this newfound strength hold under further scrutiny? Tomorrow, he would face a different challenge, a school assembly where he'd be sharing his experience of reaching beyond laughter, exploring grief alongside humor. This time, he would not shy away from the dives into raw emotion, he would speak from the heart. As he prepared notes for the assembly, a thought clutched at him. What if this vulnerability became an avenue not just for relief but for lasting change in himself? Would the depths he planned to explore invite complexities he wasn't ready for? Tomorrow's assembly awaited him, and the thought made him both anxious and emboldened. What if he discovered a depth within himself he hadn't yet unearthed? Ethan sat at his desk, the soft hum of the night wrapping around him, but his focus was razor-sharp. The warmth of his earlier victory had melted into a cold sweat of anticipation. His fingers danced nervously across the paper, but the thoughts racing in his mind coalesced into one solitary goal: authenticity. He had exposed his vulnerabilities, defied Tom, and now he was poised to share his story in front of the entire school. He recalled Grandma Ruth's words at breakfast, calm yet probing. "You'll find comfort in laughter, Ethan." Although she had been referring to the farmer's market, those words felt like a lifeline now. In a moment of whimsical clarity, he wrote a brief joke, a gentle opener, to ease into the heavier truths he planned to convey. He couldn't shake the thought of what awaited him. Would they listen? Would they laugh when necessary, and would his messages land? Ethan knew from experience that humor could often conceal pain, but tonight, he would wield it a different way to bridge connections, not disguise them. When he arrived at school the next day, the hallways felt less suffocating. Perhaps it was the swells of encouragement from his classmates flooding his mind, or the spicy anxiety of being caught in the moment that invigorated him. As he made his way to the auditorium, he felt the weight of all those silently supporting messages on social media, the faces of peers who would soon hear his words. Standing behind the curtain, he practiced his breathing. A few other students shuffled past with their own nerves, and he overheard snippets of their conversations. Can you believe he's actually doing it? I hope he tells the truth. The idea that others were rallying around his moment fueled him, transforming anxiety into anticipation. Finally, it was his turn. As he walked onto the stage, the spotlight warmed his skin, and the collective atmosphere, an ensemble of eyes watching him, restricted his breath for just a heartbeat. "I'm Ethan, and today I'm here to share a story about loss, laughter, and a little bit of fear," he began, grounding himself in the familiar. With each word, Ethan layered his truth with doubt, but also with laughter. There was something cathartic about unveiling his past. Each vulnerability he shared brought the audience closer, turning shy glances into smiles and camaraderie. He juggled with his struggles, addressing his father's absence, marking moments of imbalance between anger and humor, but he did it under the banner of personal growth. The energy in the room shifted as he moved towards the heart of his story. "You see, through laughter, I learned to take the edge off the pain. It's remarkable how humor puts a spotlight on our scars while inviting others to hug them too." He thought of Tom. Was he listening? Did shame pierce his heart at the realization that, even as a bully, he'd never be entirely immune to empathy? The moment was electric. Ethan's voice grew steadier as he revealed how embracing grief had become his paradoxical pathway to strength. He shared moments of connection forged through humor, jokes that emanated from real pain, and how this mosaic of experiences created a bridge for understanding. And today, my friends, I invite you to share your own stories, however difficult, while laughing in the space we create together. Applause erupted, scattering over the stage like confetti, and for a moment, his insecurities crept back, whispering doubts of performance lingering in the silence that followed his speech. But as the applause swelled, Ethan felt it, an acceptance, a ripple of communal experience stretching far beyond his own. He walked off the stage, adrenaline coursing through his veins, half embarrassed and half ecstatic. He had connected. It dawned on him, vulnerability, when paired with humor, had the power to bridge gaps and dismantle walls, but doubt shadowed him again. Had he shared too much? Would their sympathy morph into pity? And what about Tom? Would this be the moment where he, too, found clarity, or, worse, escalate his cruelty? Ethan paused outside the hall, the weight of those questions lingering in his chest. As he caught sight of familiar faces milling about, he realized he was no longer just the bullied, he was something greater, molded from his experiences. But the path ahead could still be turbulent. Accepting his transformation came with a choice: to step fully into this growth or to flinch back into hiding when faced with pushback. Uncertainty loomed large, but bravery whispered that he could navigate this moment with the same humor and authenticity that had brought him to this point. Tomorrow would come, testing the boundaries he'd pushed today. What awaited him now was not merely applause but the chance to engage further with his own narrative. In a world that offered pain, what if he had the strength to subvert it, to use it as a catalyst for change? The next day dawned under a heavy blanket of uncertainty. Ethan woke with the remnants of the previous day's exhilaration ebbed into tentative anxiety. He replayed his speech in his mind, lingering on the moments of laughter and connection, but doubts clawed back relentlessly. Would his bravery sustain him, or would vulnerability reveal too much? As he made his way to school, a new determination grew within. Each step felt like a physical manifestation of his resolve to pursue growth. Still, deep down, a familiar fear pricked at him, the fear of ridicule, the fear of facing Tom again. He recognized that this encounter could either elevate him or wound him if the bully chose retribution. Once inside, the bustling hallway now felt less daunting. Conversations swirled around him, students discussing everything from weekend plans to upcoming tests. Some classmates approached him, offering light-hearted congratulations and affirmations. "You were incredible, Ethan." Emma, a girl from math class, exclaimed. "You really made us think." Her enthusiasm warmed him, reinforcing the strength he had briefly embraced on stage. However, as Ethan descended to lunch, he spotted Tom's group lounging at their usual table, an impenetrable wall of sneers and bravado. A lump formed in his throat, but rather than dread, he felt a twinge of defiance. This was his moment to test the authenticity he had uncovered. He would not let fear dictate his existence, he would confront it, sitting down with his friends felt oddly different. As chatter about the latest Netflix series floated around, Ethan found his voice. "I was thinking more about what I shared yesterday," he ventured carefully. "It kind of opened my eyes to how humor helps us connect." His friends nodded, supportive and engaged. Without realizing, he began to weave in anecdotes, telling light-hearted stories that illuminated serious themes. It surprised him how liberating it felt to talk about his experiences, now unencumbered by shame. Yet, amidst their laughter, he saw Tom loom closer, casting shadows over the lunch table with his sneering friends. Faces turned to Ethan, curiosity etched in their features mixed with unease. Tom smirked, masking his discomfort with mockery. "Nice speech, Ethan. Just didn't he know your life was such a joke?" As laughter erupted around him, the moment felt fragile, poised on a knife's edge. Ethan's heart raced. He could either retreat to the comfortable shadows of silence or step into his power. The echoes of laughter from his table emboldened him. "Well, someone's got to make light of the darkness," he shot back, the quip leaving his mouth before he could second-guess it. The lunchroom lost its chaotic din for a heartbeat. The snicker rippled through a group, surprised at Ethan's audacity. Tom's expression faltered, confusion mingling with rage. For a moment, Ethan hovered on the precipice of his transformation. He had challenged a bully, armed with humor drawn from genuine reflection. Though uncertainty prickled at him, he felt a shift, the weight of his own growth anchoring him amidst the swirling tensions. Lunch ended, and he resumed his day with a renewed sense of purpose. Conversations at school began to feel less like a minefield and more like a dance, each interaction an opportunity for exchange and connection. Yet, shadows still lurked behind him, and questions clung to his mind. How would Tom respond? Would he become a consistent threat or perhaps evolve into something more complex, unexpectedly empathetic? Ethan grappled with these thoughts and prepared for the next interaction with the understanding that growth was not a linear path. Each step forward held potential peril but was also ripe with possibility. Tomorrow would come with its own trials and revelations. Would confronting Tom lead to deeper healing or simply a different kind of conflict? As Ethan exited the building, the night air felt electric with tension and promise. What lay ahead was more than just high school drama, it was alive with decisions, challenges to face, and connections to forge. The time had come to face the embodiment of his fears and the complexities that came with them. What would he discover about himself in the process? Ethan awoke the following morning with a strange mix of anticipation and dread buzzing in his veins. The stark lines of fear and bravery stretched across his mind, blending into a complex tapestry of emotions as he prepared for school. He had fostered a small flame of confidence, yet its flicker felt fragile. Confronting Tom again loomed over him, a question mark of potential fallout hanging palpably in the air. The school hallway welcomed him like a familiar, albeit chaotic, friend. He noticed a shift. Where dread once resided, there now sat an odd comfort. Conversations erupted around him, yet his focus narrowed on how he could engage more purposefully this time. He confronted his fears. Was it too much to hope for continued progress? In class, discussions unfolded with renewed vigor. Ethan raised his hand more eagerly, chiming in with thoughts that had long been buried beneath layers of self-doubt. Teachers responded positively, and classmates nodded in agreement, their expressions shifting from passivity to interest. He felt like an active participant, stitching his own narrative into the fabric of their collective experiences. It was captivating, though the morning gradually unfolded into a cascade of successes. The looming specter of Tom still infiltrated his thoughts. By lunch, the pit of anxiety returned as he eyed the same table where Tom sat. The group's laughter echoed, a wild, menacing spray of sound that momentarily halted his progress. But this time, Ethan had a new ally: his own burgeoning courage, nurtured by moments of self-assertion. When he settled at the cafeteria table, his friends filled the void with warmth. "What did you think of Mr. Wallace's lecture?" Sarah asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Ethan grinned, recalling how he had drawn connections to his experiences. I thought about how humor can be a powerful tool to navigate tough situations. Invigorated, he shared an anecdote from his recent encounter, transforming his vulnerability into a brief moment of levity, allowing laughter to ripple through the group. With each chuckle, however, the atmosphere thickened with tension as Tom and his posse drifted closer. Their presence was an electric convergence of fear and challenge. As Tom shot a derisive comment toward him, the moment turned instantly fraught. Ethan's heart pounded, and doubt threatened to smother the embers of his confidence. Instead of shrinking back, he marveled at the unexpected urge to advance. The fact that he had transformed mockery into humor before surged through him like a wave. Ethan decided to stand firm. "I appreciate that you're working on your comedic timing, Tom," he retorted, clenching his jaw to mask his nerves. A stunned silence enveloped the lunchroom. The fire in Tom's gaze momentarily dimmed, and the ripple of disbelief from Ethan's peers could be felt. The moment was pulsating, half sassy retaliation, half stealing resolve. Yet this was not merely a defense mechanism, it was a true reflection of his development. In that surreal silence, the realization struck him: standing up didn't require grand gestures. It was about the small actions and decisions, the courage to speak back and reclaim his narrative. While Tom's response remained hidden beneath a mask of irritation, Ethan sensed the tide shifting within him. As lunch proceeded, the energy transformed. Conversations flourished with authenticity, and laughter bubbled up like an effervescent drink finding its corkscrew. Ethan's confidence climbed, tinged with a newfound understanding of his own potential. He wasn't just a boy caught in bullying's web, he was becoming a force to reckon with. Yet amidst that elation, shadows lurked just beneath the surface. Would Tom's fury transform into something more dangerous? Or was the laughter merely a precursor to a deeper challenge? Despite the joy of self-assertion, fresh uncertainty clawed at his insides. As he left school that day, the stakes felt elevated. He had opened a door to self-discovery, but the battle was far from won. The next chapter awaited him, a query hanging in the air: would he persist in his growth, or would darkness weave its way back through the light? Ethan moved through the rest of his day as if navigating the aftermath of a storm. Classwork was almost an afterthought. Instead, thoughts of his own burgeoning confidence swirled in his mind like a dance partner, leading him on a path of introspection. Each step he took seemed both tentative and bold, a duality he had never expected to embrace. As he settled in for the evening, the weight of the day took a toll on him. He reflected on the encounter with Tom, feeling the thrill of standing up for himself still pulsing in his veins. Yet, shadows of doubt crept in. Had his retort truly altered Tom's behavior, or merely ignited a deeper spite? Ethan's heart raced as he realized that a challenge awaited him, imbued with the intensity of his earlier triumph. In the comfort of his room, he sought refuge in humor. His mother's old comedy albums provided the backdrop as he changed into comfortable clothes. Jokes leaped from the speakers, each punchline wrapped in laughter, momentarily drowning out the unrest in his mind. He identified with the humor, marveling at how it transformed awkwardness and discomfort into shared joy. He craved to harness that power, to mold it into a weapon against his fears. The following day approached with the sun rising tentatively, as if unsure of its role. Ethan awoke determined to wield that humor again, to fortify the small spark of confidence he had ignited. Yet as he prepared, his mind drifted to his future encounters with Tom. Would he be able to draw on that humor when faced with the raw edges of confrontation? In class, he absorbed Mr. Wallace's lecture, but his focus often drifted to the possibilities and pitfalls of his journey. Encouraged by the feedback from his peers and teachers, he aimed to stay engaged. Each time he raised his hand, he felt a flicker of that changing perception, a response not merely to be seen, but to be heard and respected. The hallway buzzed with energy as Ethan made his way to lunch, an arena of laughter and camaraderie. Although exhilaration coursed through him, doubt started to spiral. Should he engage with humor, or would it backfire? What would happen if Tom retaliated? Ethan felt the need for a plan, a strategy to navigate the complexities of this social minefield. He allowed himself to contemplate how laughter could disarm his adversaries while building connections. The day unfolded with moments of camaraderie, and he engaged with a resolve that surprised him. When approached by Sarah and Liam, he found his voice rising with the pulse of buoyancy. "Did you guys hear what they said at the assembly about finding your humor niche? I think mine is dodging awkward moments." His remark drew laughter, a soft reminder of his previous successes in weaving humor into his interactions, but the moment felt fleeting, not unlike a burst of light before darkness encroaches. Tom's laughter boomed across the cafeteria, a jarring reminder of the volatility beneath the jovial facade. With friends around him, Ethan felt safe, yet the shadows of uncertainty lingered. They soon supplemented his confidence with cautious optimism, fear and bravery intertwined with every exchange. As Ethan headed to leave, he caught Tom's gaze across the room, a confrontation inevitable. Mixed with the bubbling camaraderie was a sudden heaviness, pressing against his chest, reminding him of the weight of growing stakes. Transforming comedy into a tool for resilience wouldn't just be a single moment, it would require practice. Each courageous act nudged him along this new path, and yet, the specter of Tom loomed larger in his mind, with his heartbeat echoing in his ears. He understood that his evolution wasn't merely about laughter, it was about the courage to embrace his own voice amidst the echoes of his adversaries. Tomorrow would usher in a new chance to confront not just a bully, but a part of himself that he was still learning to define. The question now lingered not only on the precipice of his interactions but settled deeper within: what would it truly take to face Tom again, not as a boy who stands against cruelty, but as a young man fluent in the language of self-assertion? The next confrontation edged closer, its weight heavy yet tantalizing, a chance to redefine himself once more. Ethan woke up the next morning with a sharp breath, the weight of the day pressing against his chest. He faced the mirror and recognized the familiar reflection of a boy caught between uncertainty and determination. The echo of laughter still resonated in his mind, but it was shadowed by the impending confrontation with Tom. What if the humor he had wielded as a shield turned against him? After finding his footing in the morning routine, he rehearsed potential exchanges in his mind. Laughter felt like a fragile thread, and he needed to stitch together a strategy that allowed him to wield it effectively. He envisioned moments where he would meet Tom's aggression with a witty comeback, but doubts kept rearing their heads. What if humor only fueled Tom's disdain? Ethan shook his thoughts away and resolved to not let fear dictate his actions. At school, the rhythmic clamor of lockers and chatter enveloped him, filling the hallways with an energy he both craved and feared. Each step toward his locker felt heavy with the potential of failure, yet buoyed by the support of his friends. As he turned the corner, he caught sight of Tom near the cafeteria, the bully's boisterous laughter sounding like a sinister anthem of the forthcoming battle. His heart pounded as he approached the crowd, reminded just how quickly the tide could shift. The moment Sarah and Liam joined him felt like an anchor. They were the calm in his brewing storm, their presence offering solace despite the sea of doubt swirling around him. "Remember, just have fun with it," Sarah encouraged, her voice a melody that soothed his nerves. Yet, the shadows lingered. Could he truly conquer the growing tension? As lunch unfolded, Ethan observed the dynamics of the cafeteria, the laughter that flowed so freely among his peers contrasting sharply with the weight of the situation ahead. Laughter bubbled up around him as he attempted to mold his jokes amidst the anxiety. "Did you guys hear about the mathematician who's afraid of negative numbers? He'll stop at nothing to avoid them." The group erupted, their laughter ethereal, yet the sound was chased by the specter of Tom lurking nearby. Then, it happened. Tom ambled over, his eyes gleaming with mischief. It was the moment Ethan had anticipated, yet the reality of facing a bully felt starkly different. He needed to hold on to the laughter, using it as a force to propel him through this confrontation. "Hey, if you're looking for negative numbers, I think I left some over at the last math test," Ethan quipped, feeling a rush of adrenaline coursing through him. Tom paused, caught off guard, his bravado faltering for a fleeting moment. A chorus of chuckles rippled through the table, but it quickly faded as Tom reasserted himself. "Real cute, Ethan. Just remember, it's all fun and games until you find yourself alone," he jeered. Instinctively, Ethan felt the familiar twist of fear in his gut. Tom's south words hit close to home, whispering reminders of old vulnerabilities. Yet amid the tension, he felt something within him awaken, a defiance ignited by the laughter he held closer than courage, urging him to respond. "True, but at least I'd have my jokes to keep me company." The playful retort surprised even himself. For a moment, the realization washed over him: he didn't need to fight fire with fire. He could embrace the humor that defined him while setting boundaries. As the laughter erupted once more, he caught Tom's eye, his resolve firming. The tension dissipated slightly, morphing from an impending confrontation into a playful skirmish, an unexpected game of wits where Ethan finally held a stake, but deep within, Ethan understood that this was only the beginning. The thrill of standing up for himself felt exhilarating, yet questions lingered over Tom's next move and whether he would be able to maintain this newfound confidence. Would humor continue to be his ally, or would it falter in moments of deeper conflict? He also realized this confrontation was not merely about Tom, it marked a pivotal point in his internal journey. As he left the cafeteria, the weight of pending challenges loomed. Tom wasn't done yet, and neither was he. The challenge wasn't only to ward off a bully. Ethan found himself eager to explore who he could become through adversity, testing the boundaries between fear and confidence. The next encounter would demand more than surface-level humor. It would ask him to confront deeper insecurities and emotions. And as he stepped away from the laughter and back into the reality of uncertainty, another question poised itself on the horizon: what lay beyond this stage of confrontation, and who would he emerge as after all was said and done? Ethan wandered the halls post-lunch, his heart racing as he revisited the earlier encounter with Tom. Each footstep felt heavy with the echoes of shouts and laughter that buzzed around him, a stark contrast to the whirlwind of thoughts in his mind. The adrenaline high from his quip had faded, replaced by a creeping uncertainty. How could he harness the glimpse of confidence he'd felt moments before? He spotted Sarah and Liam by the gym doors, their faces carrying bright smiles that momentarily lifted the weight on his chest. But as he approached, he was enveloped again by doubt. What if Tom just decides to up the ante tomorrow? He muttered, more to himself than to his friends. "Take it one day at a time, Ethan," Liam replied, his voice steady. "You've come a long way already. Just keep those comebacks ready." The words resonated, but Ethan found himself questioning the strength of his jersey-woven humor against the depths of Tom's cruelty. It was easy to banter in light-hearted moments, yet how would he respond if Tom launched a more brutal attack? "What if my jokes don't work next time?" he whispered, anxiety creeping into his voice. Sarah chuckled softly, brushing off his fears. "Every comeback isn't a guarantee, but you also don't have to fight alone." Her sincerity lingered in the air between them, both a reassurance and challenge. Yet amid Sarah's comforting words came the nagging instinct that had gripped him earlier. Was humor alone enough to shield him from the impending storm? As Ethan trudged through evening classes, he paid less attention to the lessons and more to the patterns of interactions around him. Each exchange felt like a lesson in conflict resolution, a way to analyze his own past experiences with fear and discomfort. He noticed the smallest confrontations, how they could be navigated with an innate ability to understand others' motivations. The empathetic proximity unfolded a layer he hadn't realized he possessed, one that revealed an emotional intelligence lurking beneath the surface of his humor. By the time he got home, all remnants of the day's fatigue seeped into his bones. He tossed his backpack onto the floor, the action echoing his internal confusion. Staring at the homework looming before him, his mind drifted back to the confrontation. Had he truly made strides towards himself, or was he just momentarily embracing a lighter facade? This uncertainty gnawed at him, provoking an urge to dig deeper. He flipped through his journal, pages filled with rambling thoughts, jokes, and anxieties drawn out like breadcrumbs leading him toward self-discovery. "The only way through is forward," he scribbled, but then paused, pen hovering over the still blank page awaiting some moment of truth. As he wrote, he found clarity within the chaos. The next time he encountered Tom, it wouldn't just be about returning jabs in a game of words. It would be a battle to understand and confront the insecurities that tethered him to fear. Ethan flipped to a new page, the light tapping of pen against paper heightened with resolve. He jotted down planned strategies that blended humor with newfound introspection. How could he shift the narrative from victim to participant, inviting Tom into a conversation rather than a confrontation? Yet, even as he filled the pages, he felt the tide of his thoughts surging toward the unknown. What if this approach backfired? What was once a playful use of humor now felt like navigating a minefield fraught with potential loss. His heart raced with both fear and anticipation at the thought. With each stroke of his pen, Ethan realized the practical steps he needed to take in the coming days, the things he would prepare, the inner dialogue he would nurture, and the focus he would apply. However, as he settled down with a tentative sense of control, another unsettling truth loomed. Humor wasn't just an armor, it was a bridge to understanding. Tomorrow would indeed arrive, and with it, the challenge of response and consequence would confront him again. As he lay down, staring at the raw, unfiltered ceiling, a question nagged at the edge of his thoughts: could he truly wield humor as a tool for connection rather than a weapon for defense? He drifted to sleep, the soft whispers of uncertainty hanging in the air, the promise of a defining moment waiting just beyond the dawn. Ethan woke up the following morning bathed in sunlight, the warmth seeping through his window like an embrace, filling him with a sense of purpose. Today was the day he would face Tom again, not merely as a target for ridicule, but as a young man ready to assert himself. His heart, once a clenched fist of fear, now beat steadily, fueled by the recognition of his own growth. The previous confrontations had revealed the strength buried within him, and he was determined to harness it. As he prepared for school, Ethan recalled the flood of support he had received during his assembly speech. The laughter mixed with expressions of shared pain had created a renewed sense of belonging. In those moments, vulnerability transformed into a collective strength, a sentiment he aimed to channel again. He adorned himself with clothes that felt like armor, a stripped-down confidence reflecting his inner resolve. Arriving at school, each step toward the entrance felt lighter, yet the specter of Tom lingered in the background. Friends greeted him with familiarity, their smiles igniting a current of optimism. "Ready for round 2?" Sarah asked, nudging him playfully. He nodded, an anxious smile crossing his face. As he settled into his usual lunch table with Sarah and Liam, the atmosphere buzzed with chatter and laughter. It was a stark contrast to the anxiety curling in his stomach. His mission was now clear: to confront Tom, not through mockery but through straightforward authenticity. And then it happened. Across the bustling cafeteria, Ethan caught sight of Tom sitting with his friends, the air thickening as Tom's gaze swept across the crowd, landing directly on Ethan. The moment punctuated time itself. The flicker of tension hung in the air, a standoff both familiar and foreign. Ethan felt his heartbeat rise, but this time there was no retreat. He wouldn't allow Tom's presence to pull him under past shadows. As he pushed away the fear, a simple phrase echoed in his mind: humor can be a bridge. "Hey, Tom!" Ethan called out, standing slightly taller and aligning his confidence with the rhythm of his heartbeat. The cafeteria quieted in a moment of anticipation, the eyes of his classmates now pinned on the unfolding drama. "I wanted to talk," he continued, feeling a surge of courage flow through him. Tom remained seated, brow lifted, expression a mix of bemusement and irritation. "What? You here to tell me another joke?" Ethan braced himself. "No, actually, I'm here to ask you why you feel the need to put others down. I know what it feels like to deal with grief, and I don't think a bully helps anyone heal." Gasps echoed around the room, threading through conversations and laughter, weaving a tapestry of surprise and wonder. Ethan stumbled slightly over his own words, but clarity surged within him, a recognition that this wasn't merely about confronting Tom, it was about stating the truth he had fought so hard to understand. Tom blinked, a flicker of uncertainty replacing the bravado in his eyes. "You think I don't know pain?" he retorted, yet the edge in his voice was softer, almost defensive. "I do think you know it," Ethan replied, standing firm, "but hiding behind a mask of cruelty doesn't help anyone." At that moment, a transformation occurred not just in Ethan, but around him. Laughter shifted to murmurs of agreement, students nodding in recognition of the bravery it took to bring light to Tom's darkness. Tom's expression cracked, allowing a glimmer of vulnerability to seep through. "What do you want me to say?" he spat, the shield faltering. Ethan recognized its fragility. "Just be real, Tom. We're all dealing with something, and humor can help us connect rather than tear us apart. I reached out, and it helped me heal. Maybe it could help you too." Silence stretched, enveloping the two boys until Tom shrugged, uncharacteristic hesitation surfacing. "You think you're so special now?" he incredulously challenged, but Ethan knew better. "I think we're all doing our best in this messed up world," Ethan responded, the confidence swelling within him like a tide. The tides of the lunchroom shifted as key players rallied behind Ethan. "Yeah, Tom, we deal with our stuff differently, but you don't have to be a jerk about it," Liam added. With the truth hanging in the air, a line shifted not only for Ethan but for everyone gathered. Each challenge they shared bypassed the masks worn at school. Empowerment resonated through the crowd, igniting a shared narrative of resilience. "Fine, whatever," Tom said, difficulty swallowing the harsh words that had been his shield. "Do your thing, then." As Tom sauntered away, the cafeteria erupted into applause and cheers. Ethan's heart soared. He had conquered more than fear, he dismantled the narrative that bound so many, including himself. He felt liberated, standing strong, no longer labeled by his grief, but shaped by his courage to stand against it. Moments passed, class resumed, but Ethan's perception had forever altered. In the face of conflict, he had found clarity, proving to himself that he could move beyond pain through authenticity. Recalling all the laughter that had brought him comfort, he felt a profound sense of victory. This was the moment of transformation he had sought, an acknowledgement not just of his strength but the strength embedded in shared experience. As he sat down, surrounded by friends who echoed his sentiment of understanding and humor, Ethan recognized that he had found more than courage. He had found purpose, a path carved in authenticity that would allow him to conquer not just Tom, but any challenge that lay ahead. Ethan smiled, a genuine reflection of growth, while thoughts of the future brimmed with possibility. He had achieved something remarkable. He discovered that true transformation requires vulnerability, connection, and the willingness to share one's journey. Now, as you sit with this story of personal overcoming, you need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire growth and resilience. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these transformative tales reach every corner of the internet. Comment below with your reactions and theories, sharing your thoughts on Ethan's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion.